In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we take up the episode By Any Other Name.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the voyager of Trekking Through Compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Episode 51, By Any Other Name. In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the episode By Any Other Name, which aired on February 23, 1968, and occurred on Stardate 4657.5. Story synopsis. After a landing party beams down to investigate a distress call, they initially find no life form readings. However, two perfect human life forms register and put in an appearance. They thank Kirk for responding so quickly to their distress call and demand that Kirk surrender to the Enterprise. Before Kirk can take any action, they press buttons on their belt which paralyze the landing party. Turns out that Commander Rojan and his companions Tomar, Hanar, Drea, and Kalinda are members of the Kelvin Empire from the Andromeda Galaxy. They are members of a scouting party sent to search for a new planet, since their old one will become unlivable within 10 millennia due to high radiation levels. However, the Kelvin ship was destroyed by an energy field at the edge of the Milky Way galaxy. The Kelvins were able to use a shuttlecraft to reach their current planet, but need a new ship to return to Kelvin. They also plan to modify the ship's engines to allow intergalactic travel so that the trip will be made within 300 years. When Rojan explains this to Kirk on the planet's surface, other Kelvins take over the Enterprise. When imprisoned behind bars similar to Debrinium but denser, Lieutenant Shea advocates a forcible breakout. However, in an out-of-character move, Kirk suggests that Spock use a Vulcan mind meld probe on Kalinda, similar to as he had done with the guard on Armenia 8. Spock is violently thrown back by Kalinda's reaction, but when she enters the cell to investigate, Kirk knocks her out and attempts to escape. Unfortunately, Kirk and the escapees don't get very far, and the Kelvins reduce Shea and Yeoman Thompson to two of their gray hydropharia, which purportedly contain their essences. Rojan crushes Thompson's polyhydrin as a warning to Kirk, but restores Shea to human form. From his mind probe, Spock reports that the Kelvins are actually immense beings with 100 limbs which resemble tentacles. Spock pretends to be ill by going into a self-induced Vulcan coma and is permitted to be beamed up with Scotty. On board, McCoy tells Nurse Chapel to prepare 2 C's of stocoline. McCoy pretends that Spock will be fine in several hours and is only suffering from a flare-up of Brazilian cassava fever. Kalinda admires the plants on the planet's surface and compares them to a Kelvin saphir, a rose by any other name, according to Kirk. Spock and Kirk are beamed up to the ship and discover the Kelvin power source. Spock and Scott prepare to blow up the Enterprise when it passes through the negative energy barrier at the edge of the Milky Way galaxy. However, Kirk hopes to avoid destruction and so refuses to give the order. Actually, the Kelvins had discovered their plan and rendered it ineffective in any case. As soon as the Enterprise has passed the energy barrier, the Kelvins began reducing the crew one by one, with the exception of Kirk, Scott, McCoy, and Spock, to more gray polyhedra. While Tomar expresses a desire to sample the ship's food, Spock notes that since the Kelvins have taken human form, they seem to be indulging in sensory experiences which were heretofore unknown by them. Kirk suggests that this unfamiliarity with senses can be used to confuse the Kelvins, and Bones uses a stimulant formazine on Hanar to irritate him, telling him it is a vitamin shot. Kirk attempts to seduce Kalinda by kissing her, and Spock plays on Rojan's jealousy over the kissing incident. Scotty, in a hilarious scene, loads up Tomar on Saurian brandy, and when he runs out, resorts to his secret stash of Scotch whiskey. But Drea is unaccountably left unaffected. When Rojan tells Kalinda to stow away from Kirk and she refuses, Rojan loses his temper and threatens to neutralize the rest of the humans. As Scott is about to celebrate drinking Tomar literally under the table, he too keels over in a dead faint. Rojan becomes increasingly jealous and engages in a fist fight with Kirk over Kalinda. The Kelvins are dismayed by their very human responses and fearful that, because of taking human form, they have betrayed their own form and their own culture. They are therefore convinced by Kirk and Spock to work with the Federation to find a habitable planet within the Milky Way galaxy for their people, and Rojan returns control of the Enterprise to Kirk. So what's the fun fact from this episode? Well, the title is part of a quotation from Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 2. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Kirk recites it to Kalinda. It is often used to convey the idea that although you can change the name of something, its nature will remain the same. In this case, the Kelvins become human, and in doing so, they start behaving as humans. One of the funniest scenes in this episode, and probably one of the funniest scenes in much of Star Trek, the original series, is the drinking scene between Scott and Tomar. It's echoed, however, throughout Star Trek, particularly in The Next Generation Relics. Not knowing what a drink is or the specific drink he's having, Data sniffs the bottle and repeats Scotty's lines that it is green. Picard later informs Scott that it was Aldebaran whiskey. Scott's slurred description of the bottle he shows to Tomar suggests he might know the drink's name, only forgot it later as a possible result of binge drinking. A similar, if not identical, green drink was also shown in the Mirror Darkly, that's from the Enterprise, aboard the Constitution-class USS Defiant. After emptying a bottle of green, Scott tosses it to the door of his quarters and the sound of glass shattering is heard. However, later when Scott passes out in front of his door, the fully intact bottle is in the background. In the drinking contest, after they finish off the first 3 bottles, Scott shows Tomar his most prized possession, a rare 200-year-old Scotch whiskey. Finishing off this last bottle is what finally knocks Tomar out, and Scotty as well. There were a couple of direct references to 2 previous episodes. After Rojan mentions the galactic barrier, Kirk says, yes, we've been there, and that, of course, was where no man has gone before. Even Spock repeats his analysis of the barrier word for word. Density negative, radiation negative, energy negative. When the landing party is detained in a cave, Kirk recalls their imprisonment on Ameniar 5 or Ameniar 7, and Spock's use of a mind meld to fool the guards in A Taste of Armageddon. There's a couple of other continuity pieces from this episode I'd like to raise. In Charlie X, Kirk tells Charlie Evans, there's no right way to hit a woman. In this episode, or rather in the episode of the Gamesters of Triskelion, Kirk does, but he uses a karate chop on Kalinda. And finally, when Chekhov is neutralized at the navigation console, we see the main view screen in the background, since that station faces the viewer. Instead, we see a different angle from the bridge, a red rail broken at the left in front of 2 console chairs. So some interesting continuity issues from this episode. For today's compliance lessons, I want to take a little bit different direction and apply them to the financial services industries. This is the first time we've done this on Trekking Through Compliance, and I thought it might be fun to consider the lessons from this episode by any other name as they could be applied in financial services. So what are they? Number 1, adaptability and flexibility. The financial services industries is frequently subject to regulatory changes and evolving compliance requirements. Compliance professionals in the financial services industries must be able to adapt their programs and policies quickly to address new rules, guidelines, demonstrating the need for flexibility. When regulations around AML or KYC are introduced, or new regulations, I should say, compliance teams must be able to swiftly update their processes and systems to ensure continued compliance. 2, understanding cultural differences. Financial institutions operate in diverse global markets, serving customers with varying cultural backgrounds and expectations. Compliance professionals must have a deep understanding of the cultural nuances and local regulations in each market to ensure appropriate compliance measures are in place. This could involve tailoring custom onboarding practices, communication styles, and even compliance reporting to align with unique cultural norms of different regions.
Join us tomorrow.
3. Effective communication and negotiation. Compliance professionals in the financial sector frequently need to navigate complex relationships between regulators, auditors, and internal and external stakeholders. Effective communication and negotiation skill are essential in these interactions, as compliance teams need to find common ground and craft mutually acceptable solutions for compliance issues. For instance, when working with regulators on the implementation of a new policy, compliance professionals must be able to articulate their concerns, propose alternatives, and negotiate reasonable timelines and requirements. 4. Balancing compliance and innovation. The financial services industries is undergoing a rapid technological transformation, as are many industries, and with the emergence of innovative products and services such as digital banking, cryptocurrency, and AI-powered financial advice. Compliance professionals must find ways to integrate compliance considerations into the innovation process, ensuring that new offerings and initiatives do not compromise regulatory requirements or ethical standards. This may involve collaborating with product development teams to design compliance by design solutions and establishing robust risk assessment frameworks to evaluate the compliance implications of new innovations. 5. Building resiliency and preparedness. The financial services industries is particularly vulnerable to compliance risks such as cyber threats, financial crimes, and reputational damage. Compliance professionals in this sector must build resilient compliance frameworks that can withstand unexpected challenges and disruptions. This could include implementing robust incident response plans, conducting regular compliance audits and stress tests, and developing contingent strategies to ensure that business continuity in the event of a compliance crisis. 6. Empowering individuals and leveraging expertise. Compliance in the financial services industry often involves collaborative efforts of a variety of teams, including legal, risk, information security, and operations, as well as compliance. Compliance professionals should empower employees across the organization to be active participants in the compliance process, leveraging their diverse and expertise and insights to strengthen the overall compliance program. This could involve implementing compliance training programs, establishing cross-functional compliance committees, and encouraging employees to report potential compliance issues or concerns. By applying these compliance lessons from the Star Trek episode By Any Other Name from the original series to financial services, compliance professionals can navigate the ever-evolving compliance landscape, foster a culture of ethical behavior, and contribute to the long-term resilience and success of their organization.
Join us tomorrow when we take up the episode, The Omega Glory.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.